I want to give a huge thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring this episode. Therapy isn't something to run away from, it's a vessel to run towards. BetterHelp is the world's largest therapy service and it's 100% online, so break out your comfies. With BetterHelp, you can tap into a network of over 30,000 licensed and experienced therapists who can help you with a wide range of issues. To get started, you just answer a few questions about your needs and preferences in therapy. That way, BetterHelp can match you with the right therapist from their network. Then you talk to your therapist however you feel comfortable, whether it's via text, chat, phone, or video call. You can message your therapist at any time. Anytime. And schedule live sessions when it's convenient for you. No more fumbling to get a session on the calendar. You schedule based on when the time is right for you. If your therapist isn't the right fit for any reason, you can switch to a new therapist at no additional charge. Therapy changed my life for the better. Pun intended. And with BetterHelp, you get the same professionalism and quality you expect from in-office therapy, but with a therapist who is custom picked for you, more scheduling flexibility, and a more affordable price. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/Rocky. That's betterhelp.com/Rocky. I go out Friday to a hot spot. Actually, let me say fun bar. Hot spot sounds kinda COVID-y. The vibes are right, of course. The music can only be described as varietal. In a good way. Old school rock and roll mixed in with Beyonce, Ja Rule, Johnny Cash, Lauryn Hill, and Shaggy. You would have thought you were at a ballet recital the way we were on our toes waiting to hear what was coming on next. The drinks are flowing, it's old friends, new friends, everybody's Gucci. But the biggest problem when you're in a dope night out vibration like that is the night gets away from you. The hours, they roll on. And when the night gets away from you, the Gremzies come out. You know the Gremzies. The dregs. 2 Gremzies approach me and my friend, unsolicited. Be careful of these kind. The ones that are a little attractive upon first glance, but then, when they lean in to talk to you, it's like they're putting all of their weight at the tip of their left foot, and they could topple with the delicate breeze of a cool September night at any moment. And he smells like he just drank 14 beers back to back on a dare. You know what I'm talking about. 2 of those approach us. But they're cute. So I entertain this, but call me a Taylor Swift song because I knew they were trouble a mile away. They approached confident. Okay, a corny but cute pickup line to obtain entry. Then he tells us how much he loves this bar and how he can't really go to the bar next door anymore. Now you feel the energy change. His vibe gets weird. Why can't you go to the bar next door, you tall glass of toilet water? He lines himself up to begin monologuing at us. And he says, I got kicked out of the bar next door for getting in a shoving match with a black guy. Not to be racist. Bro, what part are you not being racist? Did you shove him because he's black? Or do you think black is a bad word? To people who do think black is a bad word, if you really think that in your heart, I just side out my judgment. I'm going to explain to you that black is not a bad word. People are black, just the way people are white. And some people are both, present company included. And just like MJ said, it don't matter if you're black or white. You can make the word racist by throwing a negative word in front or behind it, or have some weird racial undertone when you say it, or whisper it or look around. Ugh. But I want to tell you the reason why you probably think just saying black person is racist. It's because maybe growing up or even in your adult life now, whenever someone in your life would say the word black, it was usually accompanied by their own racial prejudices and biases. Black is not a racist word. You only think that because of how it's been used while black people weren't around and how white people were using it behind closed doors. The good news is you can break that cycle. And did you know that sometimes when you're telling a story, you don't even have to put black or white in front of who it was because it's likely irrelevant to the plot? For my story, this guy was white, though. I'll just throw that in there. But you do as I say, not as I do, you know? Now, I wasn't able to tell my beer-breathed friend all this because it was loud and he was hammered, and I know my audience. But if even one listener learned something from this message, then we're doing something right.
Time for
Duh.
Welcome to the Rocky Rundown, where you get to learn a little bit about my week. Party God Squad, hello. Did you have a good week? I sure hope so. This week was a fun one indeed. Some highlights of my week: I got to do a killer improv show at QED in Astoria. QED, pumping out quality, funny, hilarious comedy shows all the time, putting Astoria's comedy scene on the map. On Friday, I got to celebrate my dear friend Liam's birthday. He's a dream. He's a member of the Party God Squad. Go back and listen to his episode, Liam Dalton. Love him to bits. I've been asking you, the Party God Squad, to submit Wild Night stories for the past couple of weeks, and good news, you have. I'm so excited for this brand new chapter of Wild Nights. I want to retell each and every one of your wild stories, so let's make that happen. Wild is a broad word, just like I'm a broad. So get excited for our first Wild Nights retelling, and then stay tuned for my highest thoughts a little later in the episode. This Wild Night story was submitted by our friend from the north, the one and only French-Canadian Tony. First and foremost, thank you, Tony, for giving over your story and trusting me to Rockify it. For the Party God Squad, I'm going to give you a heads up just in case you want to bow out now. This story is going to get gory, it's going to get oozy, and it's going to get bloody. And a little spine tingling. So if you don't think you can handle the graphics of it, I suggest you jump ship now. Wild doesn't always mean crazy party or sex, drug, and rock and roll bender. Sometimes it means, God damn, that was wild. And that's exactly what we've got on our hands. Tony's Wild Night took place in summer of 1988, the year of your favorite podcast host's birth. If I had been able to walk, talk, and strategize, I would have been able to fly up to Canada and help our friend Tony with his upcoming problem. Sorry, Tony. At this stage in the game, our protagonist, Tony, was 14 years old. Much like American teens, he needed to be 16 to get a job, but also like American teens, most of us find or need a job before that age. Because he lived in between two different farms, he worked for both of them. What was his farming hustle? It was Tony's job to bring the cows in at the end of the day to get milked. I know what you're thinking. This seems easy. I could wrangle some cows and get them where they need to be. Cows are docile. Cows stay chillin'. And what cow doesn't want to be drained of her goods at the end of a long day of indulging in grass? Probably the equivalent of taking your bra off after smoking a joint. I wish someone would pop this bra off right now so I could let these jugs get milked by the air. Well, guess what? This glamorous job isn't as easy as it sounds. My man Tony insisted on wearing his Converse All-Stars to resemble Marty McFly. If you're gonna trudge through cow pies and piss, you might as well look like pop culture's coolest time-traveling teen. Is he the coolest time-traveling teen? I don't know. I haven't seen it. Didn't Marty want to bang his mom? I'll watch it. I will watch it. Tony finishes the job. We love a hard-working king, but those all-stars were wrecked, covered in cow shit, and slippery. So slippery that Tony Marty McFlew through the glass window when he tried to open the door to the house, arm first. It was in that moment that he learned how fake movies are. It's not some hunky-dory, crisp crash through the window. When you go through glass, your skin gets absolutely shredded. To this day, he still has a hard time watching TV shows with blood in them, just because of the amount of blood he lost that day and how much of it was everywhere. He nicked one of his arteries. Yikes on trikes, you know? Ugh. Both parents are home. Tony's mom was in the shower and went ballistic, came running out butt naked, which he said he's not quite sure what traumatized him worse. His bare-assed mama running out of the shower to his aid, or the incident itself. And you know what? I respect his honesty. His father, who he describes as a Wolverine clone, short, stocky, hairy as fuck, strong as an ox, and hands so freakishly big, he had to get his work gloves custom made. Tony's dad took his belt and tightened it around his arm, probably to help stop the bleeding. He tightened it so much that Tony was surprised that his arm didn't fall off. Wolverine, being the hero we expected him to be, drives his son 12 minutes to the nearest hospital. What a long 12-minute drive that must have been. And to add insult to literal injury, when they arrive, Wolverine crashes into an ambulance. After the crash, the staff comes out and sees Tony is so white. He's so white that they grab him and they put him in a wheelchair. But gird your loins. Here's where you think, phew, okay, he's almost inside, he's gonna be okay, they're gonna operate on him, right? Right? Wrong. They take him to the ER, they bandage him, they give him a downer pill, and they call another ambulance. Because it's such a small town, this hospital was more like an oversized clinic. In New York City, we have City MD. This is more like Towny No D. It's unclear if they call another ambulance because Wolverine crashed into the first one, so now it's undrivable. But either way, there was no imaging that was happening at this hospital regardless, or surgery. And if I may go back to the crash in the ambulance for a hot second, this didn't happen because Pops was driving erratic. This happened because it was in fact a dark and stormy night, real stormy. I guess the only good thing about summer '88, besides a brand new baby Rocky roaming the earth, is that Don't Be Cruel by Bobby Brown was topping the charts. But this night was being real cruel to Tony. The weather kept up, and Tony got in the next ambulance. The hospital was 40 minutes away, and the weather was so bad that the ambulance stopped twice on the side of the road. It stopped to help vehicles that had crashed. Imagine this. One of the passengers in one of the cars that was on the side of the road that had crashed during the stormy night that the ambulance taking Tony to the hospital stopped to help, asked if they could also squeeze in the ambulance and get a ride to the hospital. Can you imagine all the people in this situation being torn in 8 different directions? While Tony is hopped up on meds, bleeding out. This isn't an Uber pool, bruz. The EMTs weren't allowed to put people dealing with the crash in the ambulance because it's against the rules. And as an adult man now, Tony says he can't feel one way or the other about it. He was so hopped up on pain meds. He had so much blood loss. When they finally get to the hospital, they had to wait a couple of hours, and then they get to the imaging room. As he recalls, the tech said to him when he finally got in the imaging room, "So, what am I supposed to be looking for?" I guess maybe they wouldn't sound so New York. Maybe they'd say, "Hey, what am I supposed to be looking for here?" And as a 14-year-old kid, he remembers saying, "The Lost Ark." Technician in this moment, annoyed, unimpressed. Me in this moment, impressed. Anyone who can crack a sarcastic joke in the midst of a nightmare situation when presented with a dumbass question is an elite human. Timing is instinctual. Anyways, kudos to Tony for going for the joke. Finally, he gets sent to the operating room. At this point, our boy Tony meets the anesthesiologist. Now let's peel some layers of Tony's life back, shall we? He has had a lot of dental work done already at this point in life. And because of this, he knew he was resilient to anesthesia. Allow me to become Canadian for a second. "Sir, I'm telling you I'm going to feel everything." Sure thing, kid. Why don't you just let me do my job, eh? We don't need you to tell us how to do our job, okay? They thought he was just a panicked kid, but he wasn't panicking half as much as they were about to. Then, boom. Finally, they believe him. Tony was 2 for 2 getting his arm tied up that night. Right now, he's up in Canada wondering why he didn't grow up being more into BDSM. Ah, Tony, the night is young. When the surgeon came in to get whatever glass shards were in there out of there, Tony can still feel everything. Relatable. I feel like we're all out here just feeling everything, and our personal anesthesias ain't working. Am I right? Scalpel, And right as the incision is being made, the lights go out. The incision goes directly into his muscle. Let me tell you, it wasn't supposed to be made into the muscle. And our boy feels all of it. You see, at that moment, the power went out. And the hospital was supposed to have an independent power bank. And when the power failed because of the storm, the moment the incision was being made, their power bank didn't kick in. No one is believing Tony when he's telling them he feels everything. They think they're dealing with a dramatic kid, even though he wasn't even being dramatic. He was very calmly telling them. Finally, someone checks on that tube thingy, and they see it's untied. Let me remind you, the power is out. It's 1988. There's no LED lights, no cell phone flashlight. Someone had to find a flashlight during the surgery in the dark. It was an ever-ready camping flashlight, yellow. So now everyone in the room looks like they all have jaundice. At this point, our cool, calm, and collected 14-year-old is starting to get scared. The surgeon's out of his comfort zone. Tony can hear it in his voice. As a distraction, one nurse is asking him about school, sports, and if I may quote him, "Lady, I lost more blood than the combined victims of a John Carpenter movie. And your best and brightest over there made sure I can't use my arm for the next 2 years. But sure, let's talk about how many times I daydream of Christy Brinkley's pool scene from National Lampoon's Vacation during math class." Say it with me, everybody. Tony got jokes. I really should have done that in a Canadian accent. National Lampoon's Vacation, eh? Math class. Kilometers. I love this guy. Surgery ends. We can finally get to the other side of this nightmare, except in the recovery room, Tony gets a lump in his arm underneath the bandages, big as a golf ball. Nurse tells him it's just hematoma, to which Tony says, "Hematoma? Ma'am, this thing's huge. It's a threematoma." Okay, Tony didn't say that. I said that. Hematoma is blood that seeps in between the skin and blood vessels during surgery. Okay, can you take it out? Nah, it'll go away in a couple days. Shocker for Tony, it doesn't go away. After 2 months, he goes to his family doctor to have it drained. The doctor tries to, but it turns out it wasn't a hematoma, it was an aneurysm. During the flashlight-induced panic, the surgeon botched his job of repairing the artery, and he gave him an aneurysm in his arm. Now he's got to go back for emergency surgery. Thankfully, there were no storms that day, and this time you better believe they gave him general anesthesia. Wow. Tony, thank you for that absolutely wild story. And us over here, we're just happy you lived to tell the tale so I could tell the tale. If you want to connect to have your wild night retold by me, you can email me at wildnightswithrocky@gmail.com. That brings us to Rocky's highest thoughts, my most stoned thoughts of the week. Number 1, do you ever wonder, without Googling, if Fall Out Boy used ghostwriters? 'Cause if not, that was impressive, boys. Number 2, if you're sleeping alone but you need to be tucked in, go on your side, make sure you're under the covers, then stick your exposed arm's hand under your neck and pull the cover up. You should be able to execute the tuck. If you don't have a hand, develop a personality. And number 3, meter maids. In a few years, there are going to be little flying computers that ticket people's cars. Your job will likely be stolen by these flying computers. I say band together, jump ship now before they become a reality, and let the good people run amok when it comes to parking. Not all heroes wear capes, but no hero gives a ticket. If you haven't done so already, please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can follow me at Wild Nights with Rocky on TikTok and Instagram, at Wild Nights Pod on Twitter. You can also subscribe to Wild Nights on YouTube. If you want to support the show with your wallets, you can join my Patreon for $2 or $5 a month. A big thank you and a future thank you to everyone who's written and everyone who will write a review on Apple Podcasts when this episode is over. It really does make a difference. And until next time, stay wild.